Hasard, thank you for joining us. Good morning to you. We're going to have a fascinating conversation about a topic which I'm guessing most of us don't know all that much about, and we're about to learn about from you. And why don't we start just by talking a little bit about your background and history and what brought you to what you're doing these days?
Yeah, sure thing. So I was a fighter pilot. I flew the F-16, which is an aircraft that was designed in the 1970s, and we had updated the technology to more 1990s technology, but then I switched over to the F-35. And the F-35 is the latest next-generation fighter. It's about $100 million a piece, and it's really like going from the flip phone you have to the smartphone you have in your pocket. And so it was a big paradigm shift. For instance, the helmet that we wear, it's true augmented reality. And so we don't have any heads-up display. Everything's pumped into our helmet. They cost about $400,000 a piece. And it allows you to see through your body and through the jet. So anything you can see, you can engage. And so part of my job was, as the chief of F-35 training systems, to be able to train pilots to fly the aircraft and prepare them, because it's really expensive, as you can imagine, to fly these aircraft. And so my job was to get them ready to fly.
Remind us how expensive specifically it is to fly the F-35.
It's about $50,000 an hour.
Now, technology has always been used to train pilots. Flight simulation was kind of the original VR. Is AI starting to impact how pilots are trained?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was, we can turn down the feed on that. Or we can go no mic. But yeah, technology has really been a critical part. Maybe we'll just wait until I fix it. You want to go? Okay. It's always good to be the first one out the gate. So technology has always been an integral part to flying fighter aircraft. As we were talking before, the simulator goes back almost 100 years, where they're just balancing on like a wood simulator. And now the simulators we have are extremely advanced. They are these like 2-story buildings. Each simulator's... Give her a shot.
For now, can you guys share the mic?
That mic's down too?
Is your mic the one that's on?
I think this is working.
Yeah, so let's just wait a second.
All right, let's give this a shot. Yeah, so the simulators we have are really incredible. They're the size of this room right here for each pilot, and there's a true realistic mock-up of the jet. And we have multiple simulators all together, and it really provides critical training for us to be able to fly. Not only is it enables us to fly the aircraft in training, but in a lot of cases, it does a better job of preparing us for war, because a lot of the capabilities that we have are electronic. We can't really utilize that in a training environment, because it would give away to the enemy how these machines work. And so there's a big push now to have almost a metaverse where all these aircraft and other assets, whether they're based on land or sea, working together in this essentially metaverse against an enemy as well. I think this might go down too.
I wonder whether we could just speak loudly. Can you guys hear us if we don't use the mic? Microphones are more challenging than teaching people to fly fighter jets. So has AI found a place already? And if so, what type of AI is being used?
All right, here we go. Take 3. So yeah, AI is absolutely being integrated into the Air Force. That was actually my role as the chief of training systems, to find new technology in areas where we could optimize the fighter pilot training, because it was so expensive. And so what we came up with was a spectrum of devices philosophy, where at the very end you have the F-35 aircraft. It's really expensive. Then you have these simulators, which are almost equally expensive, and then all the way down to VR technology, laptops, high-performing laptops where the pilots could work on their checklists. And so we started integrating AI quite a bit because what we found is there are some really rich data sets in how we were grading these pilots. And so each flight that a student pilot went on, we graded about 60 different parameters. And so that was perfect for developing a neural net to be able to optimize the fighter pilot training and where we needed to break down the skills into, do they need to only do this in an F-35, a simulator, all the way down to a laptop. And so it was kind of the infancy of trying to utilize AI in the Air Force. And I'm sure we'll get to talking about AI drones and things like that. We weren't necessarily using generative AI, although there's definitely opportunities to do that.
This is a creativity conference. You wrote a book which talks about clear thinking, which clearly is required when you're flying one of these aircrafts. Is being a fighter pilot also something that involves creative thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's the biggest jump from going somebody who's a good pilot to a great pilot, is being able to be creative on the fly. We have a saying that no plan survives first contact with the enemy, and combat is the most complex, dynamic environment in the world. You have a thinking adversary that's specifically targeting your decision making, and so no matter how well you plan, they're going to find a way to disrupt that. And so now you have to make decisions to be able to overcome that adversity. And so we have a framework called ACE: assess, choose, and execute. And we teach pilots how to be able to make decisions on the fly. And we'll get a lot of pilots who have a lot of potential. They have really good hands, as we call it. And they will end up choking because they have scripted what's going to happen in their brains. So they've scripted, we're going to take down this SAM site, we're going to go after this enemy aircraft. And my job was to put them into training where it would go off the script, and we would see how they were able to adapt. And that's one of the most critical skills for a fighter pilot, just like it is in business or in art, we're having to adapt to the situation. And so that's really what makes a good pilot into a great pilot, overcoming that adversity.
These days, you're an author and speaker, and you talk to people about how the lessons you learned in your career can be applied to other walks of life and other things people do. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure thing. So now I speak. So I wrote a book called The Art of Clear Thinking, which did well. And so now I'm going to organizations. I've had a chance to work with Meta, IBM, Northrop Grumman, really focusing on navigating through change and how to make better decisions for their executive team. And so that's been really rewarding to be able to translate a lot of the skills that we learned as fighter pilots, really dealing with these high pressure, uncertain situations and being able to apply that to the corporate world. And so it's been really effective, and it's been really fulfilling to be able to do that. You
mentioned that AI is not just helping pilots learn to do their work. It's also, in some cases, competing with them. Talk a little bit about what's happening there.
Yeah, absolutely. So people always ask, is the fighter pilot going to be replaced? Is it like the horse cavalrymen from 100 years ago? And the way I've had a chance to work on this problem quite a bit, I was doing some tests with the Air Force in terms of physiological monitoring to be able to understand how task-saturated fighter pilots are so that you can now offload some of those tasks to AI wingmen. And so the way to think about it is it's two Venn diagrams, what AI can do and what humans can do. The circle for AI is expanding, and so there's a lot of capabilities and a lot of opportunities for AI drones to be able to augment humans and to replace humans in certain aspects. But in terms of actually going into a combat situation and being flexible and dynamic and creative, there's nothing close to the human brain right now. And an example that I use is like a Tesla car driving across the city. It can kind of do it reasonably right now, but if you have a team of adversaries that are funded with billions of dollars trying to specifically target that Tesla to prevent it from crossing the city, they're absolutely going to be able to find a way. Everybody in this room would be able to find a way to disrupt it through lasers, through jamming, through throwing signposts, out in the street. You'd be able to do that if your goal was to disrupt that adversary. So there's a big difference from being able to do this in a vacuum to doing it against a near-peer adversary like like China, for instance, they're going to have their smartest people trying to disrupt it. So the real future is not man or machine. It's being able to combine the two together. So you'll have F-35s or new types of aircraft flying with man pilots, but you also have drones out there. And so now that allows you to mitigate the risk because you have the drones going into these threat engagement zones where they're putting themselves at risk, but you have a human who's there who can make split-second decisions and be able to adapt the situation because you're always getting your equipment disrupted in a combat scenario. So you have to be able to overcome that, and humans do a really good job. So it's really combining the two together. That's at least the next few decade solution.
As you mentioned, this work is inherently unpredictable, and the whole idea is to anticipate what the other guy is doing and overcome it. Is there a lot of useful data, and how much does data about past experiences actually inform things that might be useful when somebody's also in the air? And are pilots currently using AI in the air? And if not, is there a lot of potential for that?
There is a lot of potential. We are using it in terms of in the simulator being able to have AI adversaries fighting against us. And so that's really good because you don't need another pilot out there to be able to fight against you. And so the next iteration of that is going to be AI drones out there. There's a lot of companies like Inaugural that are working on some drone AI wingmen that can fly with us. They can also fly against us. And so now we can train against the adversary because that's really expensive for a fighter pilot as well. There'll be four of us or 8 of us going out. And now because our aircraft are so advanced, we now need dozens of enemy aircraft out there. And so right now we are spending a lot of money on civilian F-16s out there flying, or worst case, we have to do it ourselves. And now we're having to not only use our training to be the bad guy essentially, but it's really expensive to fly these modern jets. And so really the future is to be able to train fighter pilots, have these drones that can make smart thinking decisions against you and to analyze how you're fighting and to find new tactics that you can implement. So really coming together to be able to do that. And then one of the biggest things that we do to learn, if you ask any fighter pilot where the most learning happens, they'll all say without fail, it's the debrief. So we'll go and fly a mission, we'll come back and we'll spend 2 to 6 hours debriefing the mission, making sure that everything is perfect for the next time we go. And so AI does a great job of being able to analyze the missions and find a few things where we might have missed as humans, where we can optimize ourselves. It's not a solution that can do everything on its own right now, but it can optimize a few things and say, hey, take a look at this, take a look at this. And sometimes it's giving you bad answers, but it gives you another set of eyes to look at your mission and for you to optimize.
Is an advanced plane like an F-35 collecting enormous amounts of data in combat that can be applied to future missions?
Yeah, the F-35 and all these modern jets are soaking up so much information on the battlefield. And so the first 2 questions anybody asks when I'm at an air show, for instance, when I was a fighter pilot, was how high does the jet go? How fast does it go? But in reality, that's just a small piece of the puzzle. In fact, dogfighting is only about 10% of what we do as fighter pilots. A lot of it is, if you saw Top Gun going in and taking out those surface-to-air missile sites that are trying to shoot down aircraft for the bombers, taking out enemy aircraft from long ranges. And so the F-35 and modern fighters don't fly as high as previous aircraft. They don't go as fast as previous aircraft. But what they do is they collect enormous amounts of data. And the real secret is being able to fuse that data into something that humans can understand. Because when I was flying the F-16, we had a lot of pilots, it's called CFIT, controlled flight into terrain, where you're flying at low altitude and you misprioritize, and you're now looking at your radar screen and you run into a mountain and end up killing yourself because you're not prioritizing well enough, because the F-16 was designed in the 1970s, has 1990s tech, and so it's like driving down the highway with a bunch of browser windows open on your computer. It's really tough to do. The F-35 and these newer jets, they're able to fuse a vast amount of information into something that's really easy for the pilot to understand. And we display it in the helmet like I was talking about earlier, augmented reality. So all the adversaries, you see symbols over them, all the information you need to engage them. Symbols are all the friendly forces out there, everything you need to know to work together as a team. And so it's really intuitive. You just are looking out at the battlefield and it's displaying all this information to you. And so you can now process 10 times the information you could before.
Do those of us who have seen Top Gun have any sense whatsoever of how pilots think, or is that just Hollywood?
Yeah, let's see. Top Gun, always have mixed feelings about this. Let's see. Taking off, fighting your way into enemy territory, getting shot down, taking off in an antique F-14, shooting down not one, but two of the latest fifth-generation fighters with this antique F-14. That happens all the time. But they put a lot of work into it. The plot line is not realistic. Of course, they had to amplify all the characters. You have the cocky one, you have the old one, you have the new one that's scared. So it's distilled down a lot. It's a lot more boring, just like all the movies about journalists. They're not going to be the most accurate, but they put a lot of work in the movie. And actually, there are some scenes, because they had fighter pilot advisors, that are extremely accurate. But the plot line isn't the most accurate. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie and really enjoyed the original one. And it was a contributor to me being a fighter pilot.
So right now, as you said, humans still can bring value to this work that cannot be replaced by software at this moment. I assume the AI is getting better and will continue to get better. Do you have any sense as to whether over time AI will be able to provide the kind of clearer creative thinking required in combat that right now it is not able to do?
That's very difficult to be able to predict when AI is going to replace any of our jobs. I would say it's very far off right now. It's just combat's such a dynamic and there's so much fog and friction in there. And humans are just so good at being able to make decisions with low amounts of data and things that they've never seen before. And so I think the real key is being able to merge the two together. And so doing some of that work that I was working on of being able to understand how people are thinking when they're starting to get task saturated, when they're starting to get overwhelmed, so that AI can now step in and start doing some of those tasks for you. So I really think that's the future, is being able to merge the two together. And I think there's a big opportunity there. And it's going to allow us to be a lot more lethal as a fighting force. It's going to be able to protect the pilots. And that's really important, because as United States Air Force, our guarantee for people like me is that they'll come in and they'll rescue us. And if you're going into something like a Taiwan Strait scenario where you're on the other side of the world and you're getting shot down, the personnel recovery chain of that is incredibly complex, to be able to send in helicopters, to be able to defend those helicopters, to pull those pilots out. And so if you're able to offload a lot of that risk onto those drone wingmen while you still have fighter pilots in the mix to be able to handle the adversity, that's really the sweet spot, at least I would say for the next few decades.
Given that this work involves sending humans into harm's way, should we be rooting for the drones to replace the human pilots and as a fighter pilot, both as kind of a rational thing to think about and also an emotional thing? How do you think about the future of this profession?
So we're pretty good at being able to make decisions that are not emotional. So there are a lot of situations where drones are the right answer. When I was flying missions in Afghanistan, we flew a lot with Predators out there, which are those drones you've probably seen on TV. They're really remote control aircraft. They're pilots that are in trailers in Nevada that they're beaming the signal all the way over to the other side of the world. And so there's some opportunities there. These drones can fly for 24 hours at a time, and so they're very effective in certain mission sets. I think as far as being able to go into really high-end scenario, there's there's going to be a person in the loop for a long time. And there's a lot of challenges as well. So if a drone ends up making a lethal decision, right now, even with the drones that are flying, there's a human that's pushing that button. And so now if a drone is making a lethal decision on their own, how do you really hold that accountable? So I think you'll be able to solve that problem. But there are a lot of these second order effects that, is it the software developer that's responsible if there's a fratricide, which is where where you actually drop a bomb on your own people. It's one of the worst things that you can do. So who's to blame for that? Is it the operator of the drone that did not make that decision? Is it the software operator? So there's a lot of things to work through, especially when you talk about drones making lethal decisions on their own.
We're almost out of time, but I did want to ask you that government is not well known for moving quickly. On the other hand, there also is such a thing as moving too quickly with AI. Do you at least have some hope that we'll get the benefits that are out there without doing anything foolish by moving too quickly in some of these areas?
Well, I can't speak for all of the government, but I would say that they've really sensed the opportunity with AI, and they've invested a lot of resources, and they're putting the foundation down to make sure that it's safe. There's all these AI safety committees. The government is oftentimes slower than the civilian sector in being able to innovate. We often say that the government's philosophy is they just throw money at it. There's no problem big enough that money can't solve. And so the government is spending a lot of money on it. I don't think they're necessarily innovating as fast as the civilian sector, but they do have a lot of great technology and a lot of great people that are working on it. And so they are definitely not on their heels letting this opportunity pass them by, because I think being able to have a great AI military is going to be critical to being able to ensure the freedom of the United States.
Hasard, thank you so much. We learned so much. Thank you, audience. Enjoy the rest of your day.